Welcome to Oath Keepers Now. I'm Mike Chisholm. A couple of quick announcements, as I always do on all my shows. There's a class called The Making of America, which Ron Clayson conducts. It's at 150 North Main, which is in the Home Specialist Building. It's every Friday at 1 p.m. from 1 to about 2:30. It's a very good class. If anyone really wants to know about the Founding Fathers and Mothers, as I always say, that arduously worked to get our Constitution for what we live in today. Also, another announcement on October, boy, the months go by real quick here. On October 17th, here at the City Council Chambers, from 5 to 9 p.m., they're holding a gathering for emergency preparedness. Everyone is invited. I suggest you all show up. Being that this is a campaign season, I've had several candidates on. Today I'm proud to have Councilman Craig Cooper. Thank you for coming on, sir. You're running for House Seat B in District 29.
Yes, right.
Well, tell me a little bit about yourself, sir.
Well, I wanted to comment. You talked about talking about the founders of the Constitution. I have a strong belief that those men were inspired by God to create this Constitution, and it had its reasons for coming forward, and so I applaud those who are teaching classes to help us better understand those men and those principles that are part of the Constitution of the United States. And so, again, I applaud you for that.
Well, thank you, sir. And I applaud Ron Clayson. He's put almost 2 years in it, and it was a 5,000-year leap that he taught. Mm-hmm. Now we're into the making of America. You know, often people will say things in an ignorant fashion because they don't really know how arduous it was back then just to formulate the Constitution.
Oh, it had to be an arduous task because they didn't agree on everything either. I mean, it's like today, we don't agree. The one thing that I think that as I've read and understand, there was some civility so they could work things out. And it wasn't like we experience today where you don't have that civility amongst the members of Congress to do things. And so I see a difference there, but yeah, it was an arduous task. You're
a councilman for Pocatello?
Yes.
So you've had a lot of experience. Why would you want to get into the House?
Well, I think that as I've watched things that have gone on, you know, I served as a county commissioner for 4 years, and then I've been on the city council for 3 years. I see some things ahead of us that cause me concern, and I think that I would like to help bring about some safety nets for the city and make sure that we don't over legislate for the cities and the counties, that we take care of those. There's some economic issues that we're facing, and so all of these things tie together, and quite frankly, I think that we've been underrepresented for the last while, and I'd like to strengthen that position and be the conservative voice that would put us in line and help us to obtain some things that we need to obtain here in this county.
When elected, sir, I'll put it that way, what do you feel is one of the most crucial issues that will be addressed to your constituents, your District 29, fellow Idahoans?
Right off the top is one of the issues that we'll be facing is the health care issue that lovingly called the Obamacare.
Well, they say that's not politically correct.
That's right. It isn't. But you know, that health care issue is going to hit us hard. It can have some effect. How are we as a state going to afford that health care and separate ourselves from the national health care bill and still provide the health care that there's need out in our community for some help with Medicaid and those kind of things, but the dictates of this health care bill can cause us to go over the top with the expenses, and it's a crippling thing. And so realizing we have a responsibility to help take care of the citizens of the United States and our state, and I believe firmly in states' rights over the federal government rights, we have an obligation. So we'll look at that as one of our issues that's going to dominate some of the time. Again, funding for education and for the state budget in general is going to take a lot of time and a lot of patience. how our revenue is going to be. We don't know right now, and I think this election that we're facing, the presidential election, is going to do a lot of things to tell us how we're going to do it, how how revenues are going to flow in. And so we'll have to watch with patience of what are the revenues coming in and what we're going to do. And again, I think we have a huge responsibility to use that wisely. I like to use go back to the Bible and use Christ's example of talking about the widow's mite and how it's important. And we have many people who can ill afford increases and those kind of things. So I look at the widow's mite as we spend tax dollars, and I think it's our responsibility to be mindful of those in that kind of a position.
Would that be considered a parable?
That's a parable, yes.
And a very good one at that.
Right.
A very good one at that. You spoke about the 10th Amendment.
Uh-huh.
How strongly do you feel about that?
You know, I feel very strongly about it. I think that as it was created, I think those who created the Constitution were afraid of a huge central government, and we've seen that come to fruition in our lifetime. We've seen it grow and grow and grow, and quite frankly, part of my thinking is people who live in the eastern United States don't even know where Idaho is, let alone what makes the logistics of Idaho. What makes we have wonderful people in the state. We have strong people who are willing to work and to do the things necessary to survive. We're survivors here. And we know better than Washington, D.C. people. You know, our representative, we have 2 representatives, 2 senators, versus states with huge populations who don't know what it is. And we have a better call locally, in my mind, to dictate what we do within the state.
One thing I've learned in my short period of being in, I guess you'd say, politics out there, guys, and life is about politics. It's about getting to know the people and to understanding, because basically someone will say something about someone and you'll think, oh, well, until we really get face to face and speak, you really don't know the person.
Right.
In your life, and you've been in the political realm for a very long time, did anyone inspire you? Did any one person or any one specific thing inspire you to continue your move into the House, hopefully? You know,
the only one that if I were to go and look at someone, I have a couple of heroes. I think Ronald Reagan was a hero with me because of some things he did. It's interesting. When I was sworn in at the city council, there was an article in the Idaho State Journal that said "Back in Time," and in there it said that in the small town of Aberdeen, that Cliff Wright was appointed city council member to replace Ballard Cooper, who moved from the community. And that's my own family's only claim to political fame, was my dad was elected to the city council in Aberdeen and served for a period of time until we did move. And so but I loved my father, and I loved his example and his desire to better a community. And so if I were to have to say, that's probably some of my inspiration. The rest of it's just a feeling that I needed to be involved in and to do what I could do. And I've been very passionate about remembering people and remembering looking out for them, looking out for the taxpayers, and doing that kind of thing.
The Constitution.
Uh-huh.
I ask everyone this. Do you feel that every elected official should be proficient with the Constitution? And whomever that elected official may be, whoever works for those elected, like their subordinates, do you feel they should be proficient also with the Constitution?
I really do think that we have an obligation to know the Constitution and what it represents. And, you know, part of the problems that we can't get attorneys or judges or anyone else to agree about the constitutionality. And I keep hearing people say, well, you can't do that, it's because it's unconstitutional. And so the drivers of that make you think, even if you're learned about it, there's still differences in it. But I think that a basic understanding of what the Constitution is and what the amendments have done and what they do. And I've heard people that want to call another constitutional Congress and redo the Constitution. I'm firmly opposed to that.
So do I. The con's bad.
That's right.
That's a bad thing, again, especially in this day and age.
Right. So my conservative nature once again steps forward.
Let's get to more local stuff. TIFs.
Okay?
What do you think about TIFs?
You know, it was interesting when I was elected county commissioner. Pocatello had lots of TIFs in, and you know, tax increment financing, urban renewal, however you want to do it. Most of what Pocatello had in, we looked at from a county commissioner standpoint that it was not for the intent that it should be. I think we've used it lately in a way that we should. I think that they're good if they're used to create jobs of higher paying jobs, you know, manufacturing, technical, that kind of thing. We had a district up that included on semiconductor and that area, and we look at what they pay and how they encourage things. I'm not opposed to those. I'm opposed to those tax income financing districts that create retail, because retail will grow on the strength of manufacturing, technical jobs, the higher paying, and we don't need to subsidize those in the building of those businesses. So I think that they ought to be used cautiously, and we ought to be careful of how we use them. I'm not totally opposed to them anymore, but the use of them, a wise use of them, I would favor.
When elected, how will your constituents, I know we're bouncing around a little bit,
Right.
How will your constituents see you in the sense that if they want to get a hold of you, how much of an open door policy would you want to have?
I've always had an open door policy, totally open. When I was county commissioner, anybody could walk into the office at any time and visit with me, and I would sit down with them and take whatever time was necessary to answer their questions and to see if there was something we could do to help them with their concerns. So being over in the legislature, we'll have to establish some line, but you know, I'm always open to the emails that don't just slam you, but I like to hear constructive questions that can be answered, and together I think that I don't want someone to call and say, well, you dirty dogs did this. Come to me and say, here's what I think you did wrong. What can we do to work together? I think it's a lot like some of the other issues we're facing right now, is everyone's critical of them, but nobody steps forward with any suggestions on how we correct them.
A lot of, when I've spoken to, I've had tons of emails, I'm sure you did too, and phone calls, and I've spoken with many of you all out there in Cameraland. They're afraid, many constituents, fellow Idahoans, Pocatelloans, are afraid to approach people that are in elected positions, like city council, you're the city. They're afraid to walk up to, say to you and say, hi, Councilman Cooper. They're afraid. What do you say to those? I mean,
you know, I hope that I'm approachable. My wife quit going to the grocery store with me because she said, we can't get through the grocery store in a short time because so many people will come up and ask you about things, question what's going on here, what's going on there. I went into one of the local grocery stores this week, and a lady came up and she said, we're going to apply to do thus and thus. How do you think there's a chance that it's going to pass and we get this done? I said, absolutely. How does our planning, zoning, our board there? And they said they recommended a pass on it. I said, okay, then I think it will, with that kind of recommendation. But you know, don't ever be afraid to contact me. I don't. Sometimes I'm a little gruff, but I don't. You know, one of my heroes in a coaching was Lavelle Edwards, who coached at BYU, and he would stand on very stoically on the sidelines, and somebody said, Lavelle, aren't you ever happy? And he said, well, I'm always happy. And they said, well, your face doesn't show it. And he said, I know my face doesn't show it, but I'm always happy. So sometimes I may not show that, but I'm always open to people talking to me. I have no problem with it.
Well, you've always been nice to me. Let's get to a touchy subject. Okay. Illegal immigration.
That is touchy.
Oh, did I say illegal? Sorry, guys. Let's say undocumented workers, but I'm not politically correct here. It's illegal. Illegal is illegal. What's your position on that? You
know, that's a difficult thing. It's a hot topic. Part of the problem we have is growing up in a farming community. There are jobs now that the average American citizen's too prideful to do. I think we have to work out a program where we might be able to allow, I don't want to know I don't know how to word it, but a visitor's visa so they can come, so those people who would be willing to come in and work.
Like a work visa.
A work visa, and let them come in and work and do the work on the farms and those kind of things. But eventually, with the idea, if they're going to come and be productive citizens, then let's open a channel for them to be legal, and I don't, you know, let them become citizens who would make a difference in the community and that kind of thing. But I don't to bounce across and we had an interesting one when I worked for Simplot. We had a plant down in El Centro, California, and we had a worker there. His name was Roberto. He lived in